Good morning. It is Saturday, August 28th at about 7:20 in the morning. My name is Larry Cedar, and I'm back with you with another session on what I call scanning, spelled Sqanning. Scanning is a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension. I'm going to say that again, the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. It's a very, very simple process, very simple to learn, very challenging to continue to practice and use over time. That's what I've discovered. And, it's called scanning with a Q, just to kind of make it different, but it's in reference to scanning the body, looking for pockets of muscular tension. We tend to carry around a certain degree of muscular tension 24 hours a day when we're sleeping, when we're awake. And a lot of times we're not even conscious of it. It's an subconscious way for our body to defend itself. And so if we can become conscious of our levels of muscular tension and consciously work to counter that through what I call expansion, muscular tension is contraction, and we want to do is learn to expand, then we can maintain a more stable, peaceful, calm, clear state of mind throughout the day and throughout our lives. So I practice this a lot. And somewhere back there, and someone maybe will be able to remember this better than I heard somewhere that if you practice anything for 10,000 hours, you will become an expert at that thing. And I'm sure you've heard this before somewhere. And I've always been fascinated by that idea. There was never anything that I wanted to necessarily practice for 10,000 hours. I'm an actor, and maybe I put in 10,000 hours at that at some level, but who knows? I don't necessarily consider myself an expert. I just love it. But this is something I found to be actually associated with this practice. And I thought, if I can practice scanning for 10,000 hours, will I become an expert at it? And I love it enough that I determined to do that. And I've kept a log of how many hours I've actually practiced it. And it's quite a few, several thousand. And my goal is to reach 10,000 and see what happens. In any case, the more I practice, the better I get at it. And the more the practice confirms for me the value of this actual technique. So I share it with you. If it's of value to you, that's terrific. If not, I hope you find something, and I'm sure we all do in our life eventually, that serves our needs. But let's see if this works for you. So squeeze your hands together, very tight. Now that's what's called contraction, okay? I read a book years ago by a man named Thaddeus Golas called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. And in it, he talked about the two basic processes of the universe, contraction, and that's symbolized in this case by squeezing your hands together. There's many forms of contraction, but this is one that you can feel and experience. So you actually can feel one of the basic processes of the universe, the opposite being expansion. And on my count, I want you to release all the tension in your hands and let them fall to your lap. 3, 2, 1, and release. That's expansion. I want to let that sink in for a second because that is the fundamental core of this technique. A consciousness of these two basic processes of the universe: contraction, squeeze your hands together, and expansion. And if I said to you from this point forward, or whenever you're doing these sessions, if you basically think about those two processes, like to the exclusion of everything else, I want you to just think of the difference between contraction, squeeze your hands together, and expansion, 3, 2, 1, release. And what Thaddeus Golas said was that we basically move between these two states. Everything in the universe moves between these two states. When we are born, when we are brought into this world as a human being, that's a contraction of elements, materials, flesh, blood, bone, ultimately a person with ideas and an identity. These are contractions, a bringing together of materials and forces for a purpose. And at the end of our life, we die and we expand. All of that dissipates and goes out into the universe in the form of dust or elements, and then possibly reforms into something else at another point. So everything fundamentally is based on those two processes. So I read this book for many years, and I was able to, in some way, link it to my physical being. And I noticed that this was very true for myself. When I was contracted and when I was expanded, I felt differently. And I began to notice that both had their purpose: contraction, the bringing together of materials, thoughts, forces, ideas to advance an agenda, and expansion, releasing all of that. And of course, when I'm working, I'm contracted. I'm bringing together things. As an actor, I learn my lines. I deliver those lines. I use the energy and force within me to advance an agenda. And then when I'm relaxed and when I'm doing nothing and I'm just thinking and clear, I am expanded. And I began to notice the differences. Both have value. Both have value. But in particular, I began to notice that when I was overly contracted, what I associated that with was tension, confusion, obsession, physical pain or discomfort. When I was overly contracted. In other words, you can move too far in one direction or the other. So what I wanted to do was, at those times, pull myself into a more expanded state and ultimately become a balance of both, centered. So how do you expand? There's a million ways to expand. A million ways to expand. And when you're overly contracted, you know you need to expand. You feel it instinctively. I need to relax. I need a vacation. I got to stop thinking about this thing. I need a break. I need to check out. I need to just lie down. I need to have a drink. That's a chemical expansion. Or smoke a joint. That's a chemical expansion. I need to do yoga. That's an expansion. I need to go ride a bike to free my thoughts and feelings. That's an expansion. So we instinctively know we need to expand to bring that balance into our lives. So I started thinking about a technique that would allow me to do that on demand, whenever I needed to, when I couldn't necessarily take a vacation or ride a bike or didn't want to drink alcohol or smoke a joint or anything like that, when I wanted to just expand just because I decided I needed to. And I realized the muscles are the perfect metaphor for this contraction-expansion continuum. Muscles can either do one of two things: contract, make a fist, or expand, release. That's all they do. They have two functions: contraction, expansion. That's all they do. And I can control my muscles to a degree. So I thought, well, if I can control my muscles, then I control my state of being, because as you expand the musculature, it affects the entire being, including your mind. The mind is a muscle of sorts, holding on to thoughts, ideas. And as you begin to relax your body, everything's connected. The mind starts to expand. It lets go of those obsessive thoughts and ideas, and you become calm. And the beauty of this continuum is you can't do both at the same time. You can't contract and expand at the same time. You can't squeeze your hands together and release at the same time. So as I began to expand, even the smallest amount, what I call incremental amounts of muscular release, I move myself away from that contraction. So any amount of expansion has value. So I began to practice this. And every single time I practiced it, it worked. It brought me into a more expanded state. Now, it was difficult. You know, the body is frequently at war with the mind. Your mind wants to think, your body wants to feel. And I have a fairly intense mind. I think a lot about a lot of things. So my mind always wanted to drag me into a contracted place. When I had a problem, my mind wanted to contract to solve that problem, to think about it. Whereas the body, when you expand it, is the opposite direction. So over the course of my training, I've learned to give that expansive part of my will more power than the contractive part, and I'm able to actually wrestle myself out of a contractive state into an expanded state through the incremental release of muscular tension. So that's all we do here. Again, if this is of value to you, great. If not, good luck on whatever else you find. I'm sure there's some technique that someone will someday discover and share with me, and I'll say, that's great. But in the meantime, this is the one that works for me. So let's practice scanning, the incremental release of muscular tension, and see what it does for you. I have found in 99.9% of cases, when I am feeling concerned or worried or anxious or physically racked with discomfort or pain, when I use the incremental release of muscular tension at the exclusion of all other contractive processes, and that includes thinking or worrying, if I can just concentrate on that, it brings me into a more expanded, relaxed state. I feel better. So squeeze your hands together and let's get started. I'll do a few what I call preliminary steps to scanning, and I'll describe those as I go, and then we'll move into the second part, what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique, where we'll actually focus on muscular release in specific parts of the body. But start by squeezing your hands. And again, this is always the way I start, because this is the way of establishing this basic premise, that the universe is divided into two processes, contraction and 3, 2, 1, release, expansion. So we want to feel that. We want to remind ourselves that that's what we'll be dealing with today. Whenever you practice, you're dealing with a movement between those two states, contraction, expansion. So we're contracted, and I want you to move yourself into an expanded state. 3, 2, 1, release. Feel the difference. And at the same time as you're feeling it, confirm for yourself that you have muscular control. You are able to control your muscular state of being. That's the first step towards controlling your entire state of being. If you can control the muscles, if you can move them into an expanded state, you are indirectly moving your very being into an expanded state. Your mind will come along. Trust me. You don't have to think about this. Just do it. Squeeze your hands together. Tight, tight, tight. That's contraction. On my count, 3, 2, 1, release. That's expansion. One more time. Squeeze your hands together. Tight, tight, tight. That's contraction. And on my count, 3, 2, 1, completely release all tension. 3, 2, 1, release. Let your hands drop to your sides. Take a deep, deep breath. Release. So you've just expanded. And take a moment to feel that difference. And a lot of times people say, well, I didn't do anything. I don't feel that big of a difference. That's right. You won't feel a big difference, but you will feel a difference. And again, you can't contract and expand at the same time, so any amount of expansion is moving you away from contraction. Even the smallest change, the smallest difference, is movement towards your goal of being completely expanded, relaxed, calm, at peace, still, empty, being. Do it again. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. On my count, 3, 2, 1, and release. Drop your hands to your sides. This time we're going to take 3 deep breaths, deep as you can. Now just sit for 15 seconds in absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. So again, we start small, very, very small steps. Squeeze, release, deep breaths. Breaths are expansive by nature. You are literally expanding your lungs. And if you've been contracted, you've probably been holding your breath. So we're moving away from contraction. Deep breaths are always a great way to kickstart this process. And then stillness and silence, because when we are contracted, we are typically doing. We are active. When we're speaking, when we're thinking, these are contractions. So by deliberately becoming perfectly still and silent, you've moved away from contraction and towards expansion. So these are the preliminary steps, very simple steps. Squeeze, release, deep breath, stillness, silence. If you do nothing else but those 3 preliminary steps, you will have moved yourself into expansion. And again, I like to emphasize repeatedly throughout these sessions that any amount of expansion is success. Any amount of expansion. I tell people, if they come to me and they say, I'm worked up, I'm nervous, I'm excited, the first thing I say to them is, well, stop talking for a second and sit still. You stopped contracting. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself to help yourself is just stop. Just stop. Do nothing. Now that can be very challenging. When we're in a contractive state, it's very difficult to let go. Contraction wants to keep contracting. So you will feel a rebellion of sorts. I always do. I never feel good when I first start this process. I feel a rebellion. My mind wants to keep thinking. My body wants to keep doing. So you're at war with yourself, but take a gentle approach and gently move yourself into this expanded state. One more time. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. See what that feels like? That's contraction. Okay? That is one of the 2 basic processes of the universe. You're good at it. It's great. To be successful is to be good at contracting. I am a successful actor to the degree that I can learn my lines and I can walk across the stage or stand in front of the camera and hit my mark and say my lines, interact with other actors. These are contractions. So contraction is human behavior. It's human activity. It's the stuff of life. But we need to balance that with an equal amount of expansion. On my count, 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel that difference? Pressure's off. No effort. Blood is flowing. Everything's opening up. Drop your hands to your sides. Take 5 deep breaths, followed by 30 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. 5 deep breaths. Here we go. 60 seconds. You don't have to count. Counting is a contraction. I'll count. Just enjoy this extended period of absolute stillness and silence. deep breath. You know, I typically, when I'm doing a extended period of stillness and silence, like 60 seconds, I'll kind of announce where we're at. 30 seconds to go, 15 seconds, 10 seconds. But then it occurred to me that that's not necessary. We count. That's a form of contraction. We count to divide our existence into portions of time that allows us to schedule and coordinate our life. That's valuable. But when you're moving towards expansion, you want to get away from contraction, so you don't need to count. I say 60 seconds, but if you want to sit for 2 minutes, that's fine, or 5 minutes. If you want to sit for 15 seconds, if that's enough. What we want to do is stop moving away from definitions, from distinctions, from divisions, into just a state of being. When you are in a state of complete being, the time is just now. So you may notice as we begin this practice, you stop caring about what time it is or how long you've been doing it, or what is the purpose of this particular step, or what does it mean, or how is it feeling. You just start to move into a state of existence. And if you've ever been particularly calm, we've had a moment of calm, I have a few of them occasionally, you'll notice that you stop caring. And I don't mean that in a non-compassionate way. You just stop paying attention. You're not as concerned with what time it is, or how long you've been doing this or that, or what it means, or what you're going to be doing next, or what you did before. It doesn't matter. You're just in a state of being. That's an expanded state. And what I've noticed with this technique is I will have, let's say, a particular concern, an issue I'm dealing with in my life that's bothering me, that's obsessing me, that I'm worried about, that I can't let go of. And it's very difficult to let go of it because instinctively, habitually, we contract. We hold on to that issue. We think about that issue. We're afraid to let it go. In fact, we think the opposite, that the tighter I hold it, the more likely I am to solve it, when in fact the opposite is true. If you let go of it and let it free, it will frequently resolve itself. So I'd like to say that if you have a particular issue you're dealing with, or concern or worry, try to remind yourself that if you step away, as I say, step out of the river and onto the nice sunny sandy banks for a couple of minutes, it won't go away. It'll still be there. You can stop caring. And again, that's not to say in a non-compassionate way. I mean to say you can stop focusing on that issue and it'll be there when you come back. You can let it go completely. It's hard to believe, but it's true. So experiment with that. Say you have an issue that you're worried about. Experiment with just stepping out of that river for a moment and just not thinking about it. Now that's easier said than done, but one of the ways to achieve this is by moving yourself into an expanded state physically. This will also, as I said, expand your mind, which will find it easier to let go of those thoughts and let them float away. So that's the preliminary stage of scanning. So you can do any of these steps: squeeze, release, deep breath, stillness, and silence, anytime, anywhere. Take 15 seconds to do it, 30 seconds. If you have 10, do that. If you have a half an hour, I've done hour-and-a-half sessions. I've also done 2-minute sessions. So take what you can, when you can. You know, your time is yours. It's a free country so far. You have the right to use your time as you see fit. The difficulty is in making the choice. We're tempted to go on the phone, to turn on the TV, to eat, to read a magazine. We're tempted to do a million things sometimes because these are contractions that we instinctively feel will make us feel better. What we're trying to develop here is a new habit. The idea that the opposite is true, that doing nothing will make you feel better, that taking a deep breath will make you feel better, that sitting in stillness and silence will make you feel better, that expanding by incrementally releasing muscular tension will feel better. It's a habit that has to be developed because we are so trained habitually to do things, to pick things up, to go online, all these things which tempt us now. And they are very seductive. They have the surface appeal of this will change things, when the opposite is true. Doing nothing can change things also. It can change things by freeing you, by bringing you to an empty, open, still, calm place. It's enormously effective in your life. So practice, train, you'll get better and better at it. And I'll be honest with you, I've done thousands of hours of scanning and I still struggle to disengage. It's very, very challenging. So we've done the preliminary. So now we move into what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique. And that is the incremental release of muscular tension. We started the session by talking about someone saying hi to me. Hello. Welcome. We started the session by talking about scanning being the incremental release of muscular tension. And I want to circle back to talk about that because that's the beauty of this technique, is it is so simple. All you're doing is releasing muscular tension. Squeeze your hand. 3, 2, 1, release. If you're ever in doubt, if you're ever confused, if you don't know how to practice this technique and don't know where to start, just start there. Squeeze your hands together and release. That's all you're doing. If you have the time to start to move through your body, through what I call the muscular zones, do that. Cycle through, start, go through the body, start again. Just keep doing it. I did it last night. I woke up from a particularly distressing dream for some reason. I was completely wound up. I thought I'll never get back to sleep. I really need the sleep. And I just started with zone 1. Let's start together. The face. On my count, I want you to release the smallest amount of tension from your face. Just let it go, as if your face was a fist and you were holding it. When you make expressions, that's contraction of the muscles. On my count, 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel that difference, that change, that shift? That's all this technique is. You've just experienced this entire technique. You've learned this entire technique. That's all it is. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. And you go, well, what did I do? I didn't do anything. I just released muscular tension. Remember, this process is cumulative. As you release more and more pockets of muscular tension, there's a cumulative effect. And at some point, you will feel what I call a breakthrough. Your body will recognize where you're headed. It's resistant, but then it will say, oh, I see where we're going. You want me to relax. Okay, I'll go with that, because it starts to recognize that it's not a threat to let go. It's actually a benefit, and the entire body will let go, and you will feel completely relaxed. And you'll wonder, why did I wait so long to do this? This feels so good. Well, again, we're frequently at war with our very nature, with our habitual forms of behavior. We have to train ourselves to move into an expanded state. But the beginning of the process, the start of the process is so simple. Just let go of the smallest amount of muscular tension. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. And you see that drooping? You feel that sensation of slackening? That's all we're doing. That sensation, if your muscles could say anything while that was happening, they would be going, ah. You're turning off the power to those muscles. And remember, that power, which is maintaining this tension throughout your body, takes energy. It's draining. It's exhausting. So you're actually giving yourself a chance to recuperate, to not expend so much energy, to not exhaust yourself, to just be, which takes no energy at all. Zone 2 is the top of the head. See what that feels like. See if you can tune into that area of your body. 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel that slight slackening of the musculature. And if you don't feel it, if you don't feel a big change, don't worry. Trust me when I say that just thinking about releasing muscular tension releases muscular tension. It can be microscopic. It can be so small you're not even aware of it. Trust the process. Trust that this works. Zone 3 is the back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. If you've ever seen one of those giant, hefty bags, and they have that cinch top, there's a thing where you pull a cord and it cinches the opening closed, very tight, okay? You pull it and it closes it tight so you can take it out to the trash. Well, if you can imagine letting that string go and the bag just opens up, that's what you're doing. You've been pulled tight and you're letting it go. And we are pulled tight for a number of reasons: fear, anxiety. We protect ourselves. Our muscles are our armor. So we pulled them tight to instinctively protect ourselves. But again, it's exhausting. You would benefit yourself more by letting your muscles relax and heal and come back to their natural state. Zone 4 is the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. Watch for that sign. Watch for that little feeling of the neck. Focus on the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. And my head dropped a little. You'll start to notice slight changes coming over your body. Your shoulders may drop. You may find yourself feeling like you want to take a deep breath. Take that deep breath. You're opening up. You're relaxing. And most importantly, you're letting go. You're letting go. The neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. So let's do those 4 together. The face, the top of the head, the back of the head, the neck, all together. 3, 2, 1, and release. And see if you can register that change, that slight change. Don't be frustrated. Don't be impatient. For me, it's gradual, gradual, gradual. I always tend to move into a contracted state, and it takes a long time to let go. You ever had a dog holding on to a toy, and you say, drop it, drop it? drop it, and they don't want to let go. And then at some point, finally, maybe you pat them on the head or something, and they just let go. So that's what you're doing. You're slowly persuading your body to let go. Zone 5 is the shoulders. Let them drop just a millimeter. 3, 2, 1, and release. Take the moments of silence. Again, you're moving away from action, activity, thought, words. You're moving into an expanded, still, quiet space. The shoulders. 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. Now, everything I'm doing is based on how I, Larry Cedar, am feeling. Of course, you are going to feel uniquely different. So when you're doing these sessions yourself, you can follow me along now if you like, but when you're doing these sessions yourself, find your own pace, find your own way into a state of expansion. You might go slower than me, you might go faster than me. You might spend more time on one zone, you might move through the zones quickly. You'll begin to discover the language of your body. You'll begin to discover what your body is telling you. And we are really learning here to tune into the messages our body is giving us. You'll start to go, how tight is my shoulder? Let me see if I can assess that and let that go. 3, 2, 1, and release. Study your body. Become a connoisseur of your body and its muscular state so that you can recognize at any given moment how contracted or expanded you are and make that change. Zone 6 is the chest down into the stomach and the front of the waist. 3, 2, 1, and release. Again, the chest, stomach, front of the waist, zone 6, 3, 2, 1, and release. And I snap as a means of making a conscious decision to relax. As opposed to going, relax, come on, man, relax. Just go ahead, relax. I go, no, no, no. We're going to focus, and at a specific moment, we are going to send a very clear, decisive instruction to our body to release. The chest, stomach, front of the waist. 3, 2, 1, get ready, and release. And if I was a conductor, it would be and release. So you're learning to direct yourself like the conductor of an orchestra. You're using your will, your decisive, focused ability to control your musculature, and you'll get better and better and better at it. Zone 7 is down the back, past the waist and into the pelvis. The pelvis is an area where we hold a lot of tension, anxiety. See if you can let go of the tension in the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. There you go. Feel it. See if you can feel that change. 3, 2, 1, and release. You may find yourself feeling like you're sinking further into your seat. You may start to feel in any of these areas tingling, throbbing. As the area opens up, I like to say there's a contraction, expansion continuum. There's also a thinking, feeling continuum. As you think less, as you control less, you feel more. So you might start to feel tingling, throbbing. Watch for those signs. These are excellent signs that you are expanding. You're allowing yourself to feel, to experience. You're controlling less and allowing more. And we spend a lot of our day controlling our feelings and emotions. It's a necessary activity, controlling our emotions sometimes. Sometimes it's really difficult to control our emotions, but we do. So as you start to expand, you're letting go of control, and you're starting to feel all the things you have suppressed or pressed down. And a lot of times those can be very strong feelings. A lot of times when I'm doing this, I start to feel emotional, and I realize how much feeling I've been holding in, as I say, consciously or subconsciously. But again, the muscles are the key. This is the beauty of it. This is what I discovered, is that releasing muscular tension acts as a guide to your entire being. As you release muscular tension, everything begins to release. So again, the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. One more time, the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. Another. Deep as you can, one more. 15 seconds. Absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. I'm sure you are all aware of the voice in your head. We all have that voice in our head that gives us messages for better or worse. Sometimes the voice says, you're fantastic, go for it. Sometimes the voice says, you're terrible, stop. And what I hear my voice say to me many times in this process is, stop, this feels weird. Or stop, this feels bad. Or stop, this is upsetting me. Or stop, this isn't doing any good. I hear that voice. And many times that voice is coming from a place of fear. The fear of letting go. The fear of letting go of control. The fear of feeling things. The fear of moving into a different state of being. You know, there's a lot of comfort in contraction and holding a position. This is why we hold our political positions. We hold our religious beliefs. We hold our ideas about the universe and the world. It gives us a sense of security, and it can be very disturbing or frightening to let those all go. What if I said to you, right now, I want you to let go of all your religious beliefs, all your moral beliefs, all of the positions you hold in life. I want you to let go of your identity, your name, your job title. Let it all go and see what happens. You'd be scared. Well, what will I be if I don't have all those things I am holding on to? Well, you'll just be a human being. All those things you've applied to yourself are just what Thaddeus Golas calls structures that you feel define you. But if they all go away, you'll just be what you always were, a human being. But it's scary at times. I get scared when I'm asking myself to let go of all the thoughts and ideas and plans and things that I've applied to myself. But they're not going anywhere. They'll still be there when you come back. And it's really healing and helpful and healthy sometimes to drop all those structures and let yourself just be. Nothing. And yet, everything. Zone 8 is down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. See if you can feel the feet throb. Start to think about the feet and see if you can direct your energy towards those feet. And on my count, let go of the smallest incremental amount of muscular tension. See, we're progressively letting go of all the tension in our body. You may have a degree of a success. You may really move it far, or you might have only a slight change. But even the slightest change is beneficial. The feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel that? And if you don't, that's okay. Just keep thinking about it. Sometimes they say to think is to make something happen. If you can imagine it, you can make it a reality. So just keep thinking about relaxing the tension in your feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. And believe me, the feet want some time off. They work really hard. These little portions of your body that carry all of your weight. They're so strong, yet so sensitive. As you know, if you've ever had anyone touch your feet, how ticklish you can be. They're so sensitive, and yet they're so strong. They're amazing parts of our body. But let them take some of that tension off. Take them off duty for a minute. Give them a break. On my count, the feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. Again, the feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. And I take these moments to really assess that change. You're building an awareness, for better or worse. You might not like that awareness, but you're building an awareness of how much you are contracted and how much you can expand. You're starting to develop a sensitivity to where you are on that spectrum. And developing that sensitivity allows you to control where you are on that spectrum. And you're beginning to learn that you can actually move the dial, if you trust that even small changes will make that happen. So we've done the whole body. Let's move through it quickly. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Don't think about it. The back of the head, just do it. 3, 2, 1, and let it go. The neck, zone 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Moving into the shoulders, which are connected to the neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. They dropped. The chest, stomach, front of the waist, zone 6, 3, 2, 1, and release. There it goes. You feel that slackening. Zone 7, down the back and into the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, unclench and release. And finally, zone 8, down the legs, across the knees and into the feet. If you feel them throbbing, that's excellent. 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. Another. Really expand. 60 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle. Make that deliberate choice, but continue to breathe. deep breath. I can't emphasize enough the value of stillness and silence. It's a great way to come to terms with yourself and to get to know who and what you are. When you sit in stillness and silence, the first thing that happens is your mind starts to go, what's going on? Why am I doing this? What should I be doing? What did I just do? Why is this so hard? I want to move. What does this mean? Am I wasting time? A million thoughts. And if this was a wrestling match, that's your mind wrestling to move back into contraction. And on the other side is your will, your decision to not do that. Again, you're taking control of your state of being. You are conducting the orchestra. You're not letting the orchestra conduct you. So see if you can sit there and experiment with this. Try sitting still in absolute stillness and silence for 60 seconds. Then try it for 3 minutes. Then try it for 5. Then try it for 10. And let all that happens happen. Let your mind do what it wants to do. Let your worries or concerns scream and yell and say, we've got to stop doing this. We've got to get back to the computer. We've got to get back on my phone. I've got to go eat something. Let all of that happen because that's you. You're actually exposing the way your mind works. And sit back and watch it and go, wow, my mind really wants to take me to a place. But just for these 5 minutes, I'm not going to let it do that. I'm going to watch it thrash. And it's like when you're trying to train a puppy or a dog. It'll pull on the leash and pull on the leash and pull on the leash. And finally, at one point, same with training a horse, it'll just say, okay, I'm not going to win this battle. And it'll just give in to being still. So when you have the time, experiment with that. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, half hour, hour. See how much control, I don't want to use the word control because that's a contractive type word, but how much discipline you can apply to moving yourself into an expanded state. And you will wrestle with it, and it will be hard. I still wrestle with it. But you will start to notice the benefits, and one day you'll be sitting there, and suddenly your mind will go quiet, and you'll go, I've won. I'm able to sit in stillness and silence and just enjoy that stillness and silence. So as I say, learning to scan is very easy. Maintaining the practice, continuing the discipline of practicing frequently can be very challenging because we tend to be at war with ourselves. At war in terms of moving on this spectrum. We tend to want to pull into a contractive state. The war is in training ourselves to move into an expanded state on demand when we want to, so that we're in charge until we are balanced. You don't want to give up your contractions. That's the stuff of life. You don't want to become completely expanded. That would mean you're dead. You do want to control, release, contract, expand, center. And that's it for today. It's called Sqanning, Sqanning. Sqanning is a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension. That's it. 3, 2, 1, release. The incremental release of muscular tension. Let me just take a slight break to say why it's so important. At those times when I am most troubled, most contracted, what understanding the simplicity of this technique does for me is this. It circumvents logic. Frequently when we're looking for a technique that will help us, we want to understand, why does this work? How does this work? I got into a discussion with someone the other day where I kept telling them, just sit still, be quiet. No, that won't work because I've got to do this. And I said, but just sit still, be quiet. No, that won't work because, and they were fighting with me, and I could see what was happening. It happens for me. They didn't want to let go of that contraction. And the beauty of the incremental release of muscular tension is all I ask, all this technique asks, is that you sit still and be silent. That you let go of muscular tension, that you stop contracting. It's a physical task. There's no logic to it. So no matter what your mind is saying, this is why I have to keep contracting, you say, well, I'll never win that argument. The mind is too clever. I'll never convince the mind the logic of this technique. I'll just do the technique. I'll just practice the technique. I'll just release muscular tension. I'll just sit still and be quiet and trust that that physical act, that simple physical act will take me out of my contracted place. It circumvents logic by just using the physical act of incremental muscular release. That's why it works. You can't argue with muscular release. You just do it. You can argue with logic. You can argue with why you need to keep contracting. I'm sure had many discussions with people who you could see how wound up they were, and you wish they could just relax and stop, but they can't. They can't let go. And you can't win that argument, and they will continue to do it. But you can't argue with the decision to just release muscular tension. There's no logic to it. It's a choice. So make that choice and see what it does for you. Again, scanning, the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. Just release that muscular tension incrementally. I'll repost this session on my Facebook page for a little while, and then I will repost it on the Sqanning Facebook page, Sqanning. Search and find the page on Facebook, and like and follow if you want alerts whenever I'm doing a live session or when a new session has been posted. If you missed any or all of this session, you want to watch it again or any part of it, just go to the Sqanning page. It'll be there for sure. It'll be on the Facebook page for a while, but then I take it off and put it on the Sqanning page. And I end every session with rule number one. Rule number one, love yourself. Love yourself. Rule number one, when you wake up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, love yourself. Love is the most expansive act you can take in the universe, because what love involves is accepting what is. It means opening up, making yourself permeable to and embracing what is, and in particular, what is yourself. There's parts of myself I don't particularly like, but if I can continue to love myself and embrace all that I am, I will be a more complete person. I will have embraced myself and I will be at peace. And when you have so much love in you that there's extra and it's spilling out, pass it around to whoever happens to be near you, because I guarantee you, they will appreciate it. Take care, have yourself a great Saturday, a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.